comments he would like to make?
No, but I can cover some housekeeping if
Sorry,
that would
that's
be
what I meant.
okay.
Yes.
Sure. First, can everybody hear me? Great.
Yes.
I see we have 32 participants so far. Good evening. On behalf of the ACWD Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome the public's participation in this board meeting this evening. My name is Robert Shaver and I serve as the district's general manager. Members of the public may participate in this public meeting either by using the Zoom app or by telephone. If you're participating by Zoom, generally we ask that you mute your microphones unless speaking. You also may be placed on mute by the district secretary. The district secretary will unmute participants at the appropriate time when the board is receiving comments. In Zoom, you'll be able to follow along with the presentation materials as they are presented to the board. And at any time, you may raise your hand or submit a question in the app, and you will be called upon when appropriate. If you're participating by telephone, again, please put your phone on mute, and the district secretary will ask at the appropriate time if there are any public comments from folks that are on the phone. We do record our public meetings, and they will be made accessible to the public for future viewing. The board has a full agenda this evening, including convening a public hearing and 3 closed session items that will be covered near the end of the meeting. When the board convenes privately in closed session, members of the public may remain logged onto Zoom or stay on the phone to be informed about any board reports or announcements once the closed sessions are concluded. Again, thank you for attending. Thank you, President Akbari.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. And at 6:02, we will call this meeting to order. Can I ask the district secretary to take roll call, please?
Yes. Directors Weed,
Here.
Gunther,
Here.
Huang,
Here.
Sethi,
Here.
and Akbari.
Here. Director Weed, would you mind leading us in the salute to the flag, please?
Honor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Weed. With that, we will move on to item 3, public comments. Members of the public may address the board on any issues not listed on the agenda, which are within the purview of the Alameda County Water District. A 5-minute limit is customary. However, the board president may adjust the actual time allotted to accommodate the number of speakers. Members of the public who wish to address the board on a scheduled agenda item will be given the opportunity to do so. So with that, are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment? Hearing none. And seeing no hands raised in the Zoom app, we can conclude item 3. And we will move on to our special presentation. And we will be moving some agenda items around tonight. We'll be bringing up agenda item 5.6 to coincide with the Water Clips Student Video Contest Award winners. And with that, I will turn it over to the general manager.
Thank you, President Akbari. The month of May is Water Awareness Month, and we as staff felt that it was appropriate time to also announce the Water Clip Student Video Contest Award winners. So our Public Affairs Supervisor, Ms. Renee Gonzalez, will be covering these 2 items, beginning with item 5.6 on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and public and students. Tonight, we recognize the importance of water with the resolution declaring the month of May as Water Awareness Month. May is designated as Water Awareness Month in California, and in the past, the district has promoted Water Awareness Month, which focuses on educating Californians about the importance of water in all facets of their lives, encouraging involvement in water awareness activities on a local, regional, and statewide level. In promotion of this year's Water Awareness Month, ACWD will educate the public on the importance of water through local public service announcements. As we experience our second critically dry year, the district will launch a water conservation campaign. ACWD will also promote the annual water quality report, conduct a Zoom format landscape workshop, acknowledge local businesses and organizations that have demonstrated water use efficiency, recognize the Alameda County Science and Engineering Fair's Special Water District Award recipients within our service area, and lastly, award the Water Clips Student Video Contest winners. Staff's recommendation, by motion, adopt a resolution declaring the month of May as Water Awareness Month.
Wonderful. Are there any comments from the directors? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and move staff recommendation, hold comments for later.
I'll second.
Wonderful. Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Sethi. Director Sethi. And Akbari.
Aye.
Great,
I believe we may have lost Director Sethi, or at least lost Director Sethi's audio. Nonetheless, I think we can.
As well.
Okay. Not to worry. I think we can continue. I think staff has a presentation. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Thank you, President Akbari. And now I would like to acknowledge the Alameda County Science and Engineering Fair Excellence in Water, Wastewater, or Recycled Water Research Award winners. This award is sponsored by ACWD and 9 other Bay Area water and wastewater agencies. Students were officially awarded by the Alameda County Science and Engineering Fair on March 20th. The middle school winners in second place, Madison Tien of Challenger Ardenwood Middle School. Madison's project, the effect of different flocculants and coagulants on water purity. Congratulations, Madison. The first place winner, Edric Zhang of Hopkins Junior High. Edric's project, Smart Rainwater System for Drip Irrigation. Congratulations, Edric. In the high school category, third place, Alexander Bowden of Mission San Jose High School. Alexander's project, Solving the Water Shortage, Thermodynamically Optimal Distillation Process. Congratulations, Alexander. The second place winner in the high school category, Akshaya Ravi of Irvington High School. And Akshaya's project, Combining Plant-Based Materials to Clean Polluted Water. Congratulations, Akshaya. And congratulations to all the students, and thank you for your outstanding research in water and wastewater. And for the second part of the program, I would like to introduce Public Affairs Specialist Renee Gonzalez, who will announce the Water Clips Student Video Contest winners for 2021. Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and members of the public and students. Tonight is an exciting night as ACWD will recognize the talents and an important message developed by area students as we present awards for our second annual ACWD Water Clips Student Video Contest. But before introducing tonight's winners and guests, I would like to provide a bit of background about the contest. On January 4th, the contest was launched to give Tri-City middle school and high school students a chance to create a 30-second video to help ACWD inform our customers about planning and preparing for water emergencies. The contest ran until April 4th and received 27 submissions. And I want to thank the teachers in school districts for promoting the contest and the students for their entries. A total of 11 videos were scored by our panel of expert judges, which I'll introduce in a moment, and 6 videos were awarded first, second, and third place in the middle school and high school categories. Tonight, we present the board the winning videos and recognize the 6 winners along with their teachers and 5 students who will receive an honorable mention. And first, I would like to introduce and give a big thanks to our panel of expert judges from TV, radio, and government. So joining us via Zoom and sharing a few words are, first we have Jerry Dove, who is the creator and host of the hit television show, I Remember That Song. And is Jerry here? Not sure if I see.
I'm here,
Oh,
yes.
here you are. Hi, Jerry.
Hey, Renee. Hello, everybody.
Did you want to share? Okay.
Oh, sure. Okay, well, thank you again. This is the second year that you've allowed me to be a part of this, and I always like to say hello to my future bosses. So there was some great work, and I thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this. It's great.
Thank you, Jerry. And next we have Vice Mayor of Union City, Pat Gakauskas. Vice Mayor.
Oh, no.
She's muted.
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, you're muted. We can't hear you. There we go.
Okay, good. Okay, I just want to take this opportunity to thank ACWD for holding this contest and congratulate all the winners. All of them are winners. And I enjoyed watching the videos, and also learn a few things myself. I was a former classroom teacher, and my husband worked for the San Francisco Water Department. So I have some interest in judging this contest. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Okay.
And next we have Abe Mendoza, news and sports photographer for ABC7 News.
Hi there, my name is Abraham Mendoza, and I want to say thank you for everybody for letting me be part of this. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see myself right now, but I just I was impressed by all the contest entries, and all the kids did a great, tremendous job.
Thank you, Abe.
Okay.
And next we have Mayor Al Nagy from the City of Newark.
Ms. Gonzalez, I'm not sure if Mayor Nagy is here this evening. I'm not seeing him.
Okay. Thank you so much.
He's been trying to enter the meeting, but has been having, I think, some difficulties. But I think he actually came in on his cell phone, but I'm not seeing him right now. So anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, judges. And next we will premiere the winning videos and hear from some of the winners. And to set the stage for how the presentations will flow, we will first announce the winner, show their video, and then ask each student who is joining us to say a few words about their video and their award. And without further ado, here are the winners. The third place winner receiving a check for $100 is Acwd Yadav from Parkmont Elementary School. And Akshada's video is titled The Water Emergency Survival Guide.
Sorry, let me start that. Oh, can you hear it?
We can hear it.
Okay.
We can't see it.
Oh, you can't see it? Okay, let's try this again. Hold on, sorry, technical difficulties here. Hold on a sec. Okay.
Emergency! But what causes them? Earthquake. earthquakes can cause pipes to be broken or to burst. You should always store 2 gallons for one person per day. Don't forget about your pets. ACWD will order a boil water notice in which you have to boil all of your water for 1 minute before usage. Use a tightly sealed container to store your water. Make sure it's clean. Register for ACWD's Rapid Notification Alert System to receive emergency notifications.
Did you see that?
Yes, Ms. Marcoux, we could see it.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes. Is Akshada here?
Yeah.
Hi, Akshada. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah. Okay. So, I wanted to say thank you for everyone for giving me this chance to show you my talents. I'm extremely grateful for this award. I've learned so much about water. Water is an important source of water, an important source of life, and I'll work towards informing more people about water and its great importance. Once again, thank you, and I hope to participate again next year.
Thank you so much. Congratulations again. And now the second place winner is receiving a check for $250 is Marissa Torres from Itleong Veracruz Middle School. And Marissa's video is titled Water Emergencies.
What should I do during a water emergency? You should store at least 2 gallons of water per person, and that's just for 1 day. You should prepare for at least 3 to 7 days of water, just to be safe. As long as they are stored properly and are not cracked or expired, bottled water can be good for a water emergency. It's safe to store tap water, as long as you know how to do it properly. It's important to know the proper procedures for water emergencies. Sign up for ACWD.
Okay, thank you so much, Marissa. And I believe Marissa is here with us. And would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you. It was this was very fun to do, and I'm glad that I got the opportunity to do this with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now for our third place winner, our first place winner receiving a check for $500 is Needy Riju from John M. Horner Middle School, and her teacher Kathleen Kane will receive a check for $200. And Needy's video is titled Be Water Prepared.
Water disasters can strike anytime, any place, anyone. We can only survive 3 days without water. So how much water should I store? At least 2 gallons of water per person per day for at least 3 days. Is it safe to use tap water for use during emergencies, and how often should I change the water? ACWD tap water can be stored safely as long as you take the proper steps. To ensure freshness, your water should be changed every 6 months. For more information, go to www.acwd.org/grant.
And I believe Needy has joined us today. Needy, are you there? Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah. So good evening, everyone. I'm so glad that I'm really happy right now. So I want to thank ACWD for giving me this opportunity and inspiring everyone to create the videos in the first place. Last year I did compete and I won honorable mention, and I got to watch videos of finalists, and they were really good, just as the ones that we saw like just before me. And I think everyone who competed would have created amazing videos. So this award goes to all of us who competed and really had fun during these tough times. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Needy. And thank you, middle school students, and congratulations. And now we're going to move on to announcing the winners in the high school division. So our third place winner receiving a check for $100 is Andrew Ewan from American High School. And Andrew's video is titled, This is Water.
This is water, and so is this, and this, and it's an amazing resource. Every single person needs water to survive, but sometimes water can run out. Emergencies and disasters can make water undrinkable and inaccessible. In those instances, it's important to stay prepared, and one of the most important ways to do that is to store water, 2 gallons per person per day. And that can be bottled water that you buy at the grocery store or tap water.
Thank you, Andrew. And I think Andrew's here. Did you want to say a few words, Andrew?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for watching the video and just considering it. And I really had a lot of fun making it. I think it's really cool that everyone got to see it, and it could help spread awareness about water preservation and just water in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And so moving on to our second place winner, receiving a check for $250 is Sabrina Wu and Yusuf Rashid from Mission San Jose High School. And their teacher, Sandra Cohen, will receive a check for $100. Their video is titled Always Prepared, Water Emergencies.
Whoa, was that an earthquake scare? I don't know how to prepare.
You can start off by storing at least 2 gallons of water per person per day and prepare for 3 to 7 days. Remember to store water for your pets too.
And how often do I need to replace this water?
Every 6 months if you are using tap water.
Well, what if this water runs out?
You can purify water from your water heater, ice, canned goods, and the flush tank of your toilet.
Thanks, ACWD.
Are Sabrina and Yusuf here with us? They might not be. Okay. They're not here with us, but I know that they appreciate the award. So, and moving on to our first place winner, receiving a check for $500 is Suhana Srivastava from Mission San Jose High School. And Suhana's video is titled Preparing for a Water Emergency.
Fires, floods, earthquakes. Preparing in advance can help us dramatically. But how do we prepare for water? You should prepare for a minimum of 3 to 7 days without water and store about 2 gallons of water per person per day. Grocery stores are great for sealed containers that last for years. You can also store tap water. Whatever you do, make sure to store it in a cool and dark place. And don't forget to sign up at www.acwd.org/RANS for notifications about water-related emergencies today.
Suhana, did you want to share a few words with us?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for holding this contest and for the award. I learned a lot from this experience and learning how to prepare for water-related emergencies, which is a really important topic today. And I hope through my video, more people can learn on ways to be ready during emergencies, just like I did. I'd also like to thank ACWD for this contest and this opportunity, and I'm incredibly honored for this award. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, we've had such an amazing show of talent from all of our winners, but we're not done. We'd also like to give 5 student video submissions an honorable mention. The students submitted great videos, and just like
Ms. Gonzalez, did we lose Ms. Gonzalez?
I think we may have lost her.
Yes.
I think we were at the tail end to recognize the honorable mentions. I do not have those student names available immediately, but we will be issuing a news release with all of the names and all of the videos, including the honorable mentions, will be posted to our YouTube channel at there goes Ms. Gonzalez. It looks like she's back. You're muted. You're on mute. If you can just unmute yourself.
Okay.
There we go.
Did you want me to, did I get cut off at any point?
If you could, you were just about to list the honorable mentions.
Oh, okay. The honorable mentions are Riley Hashimoto, a 7th grader from Alzion School in Fremont, Kate Intrasuan, a 10th grader from Irvington High School, Jaden Pagsongan, and Justin Lamb, 11th and 12th graders from Newark Memorial High School, Bilal Salman and Toka Mohammed, 7th graders from John M. Horter Middle School, and Christine Yu, 11th grader from Mission San Jose High School. So congratulations to all the amazing students and their teachers. We are so excited to watch this contest grow and to support our students in water education. And with that, I would like to turn it over to the board for any comments. Thank you.
Wonderful. I always look forward to this meeting because this kind of stuff, this is so much fun. Let me open it up to comments from the other directors before I say my piece.
I guess I'll start. So the May board meeting is always my favorite board meeting of the year. No disrespect to my fellow directors and staff, but come on, hands down, this is definitely the best one. It's amazing the talent that we see, right? This year, the contest is special. These are really short clips that they actually got all the message across in all different way or presenting the same message. That is pretty amazingly impressive, how concise it is. Now, if only I could learn to speak so concisely, our meeting would be so much shorter, but it's just the amazing talent. I think I get more and more impressed every year. And I think I said this last year, this is the best meeting and the worst meeting for me in the year because I always feel really depressed on how uncreative I myself am and impressed with the ability of the students every year. And we do have a repeater like Nagy who came back again this year. And it's just so exciting to see how much they improve and how committed they are to help us with messaging, with getting the word out to a community. So really appreciate it. Congratulations to everybody. Every one of those videos are really, really impressive. Thank you for participating and thank you for developing all those great messages for us.
I guess I can go next. Yeah, great videos, lots of talent. You know, once again, they show beyond what we could do, you know, and this stuff just bodes so well. That's coming from our community. Those are our kids, our students, and I'm proud of them. And I'm assuming that's going to be on our website, but just fantastic stuff. Nice job.
Yes, all the videos will be posted to our website as well.
I'll go next here, Director Paul Sethi. Congratulations to all the students. Tomorrow is the anniversary of our 107th year as a water district. We are the first and oldest county water district in the state of California. And I myself grew up here in Fremont in the Mission San Jose area. I attended kindergarten through high school up to Mission San Jose High School. And I'm very appreciative of the education I received within the Fremont Unified School District and my later college career too. And I want to thank all the students. This is really impressive work, and I hope you carry forward in your endeavors to produce even greater videos and educational materials for whatever public you are addressing in your later life here. But just very impressive work from all of you. Thank you very much.
All right. John Weed, extraordinary effort. Thank you very much for your service and students who provided the videos. And it's a shame we can't do it in person, but these Zoom meetings do allow us to communicate. It's the one time in the course of the year that we truly get grounded and realize that we're here, have an opportunity to serve a public and the students and the youth that are coming forward to hopefully someday be part of our district on a full-time basis. So thank you, and thank you again for their excellent presentations.
Director Akbari, can I add something?
Absolutely, yeah.
I forgot in my comment to also say thank you to the teachers who actually help us launch these video contests and educate the students. So definitely thank you to the teachers that participate in this program. We really appreciate it.
And you know, I want to echo the sentiments that were just shared by both staff and by the directors. Congratulations to Akshada, Marissa, Nidhi, Andrew, Sabrina, Yusuf, Suhana, to the honorable mentions, to all the students that participated. I often share this story. I mean, I was a student at Parkmont when I was first introduced to the water district. They were running a competition for student submissions for artwork and things like that. And you know, that's what brought me into the water industry. That's what got me, you know, interested in it at such a young age. It's a reminder to the district. I think that there's an appetite for this type of information and this type of learning at such a young age. And so we definitely want to capitalize on that. I want to thank all the judges, Abraham, Jerry, Councilman Kokoskos, Mayor Nagy. Thank you guys for being judges this year and in years past. And a big thank you to staff as well for putting on this competition, because you know, like the other directors mentioned, this is a very, very exciting meeting when we get to all come together and recognize the talent in our community. So again, congratulations to everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. Let's see if we can hold your attention through the rest of our meeting, but I imagine many of you might have other plans.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so unless there are any other comments, I think we can conclude this item. And as we bring the agenda back up, we will move on to item 4, the consent calendar. Is there a motion to amend the consent calendar? Director Weed, I see you talking, but you're on mute.
I'll make a motion to amend the consent calendar to include items 5.1 and 5.3. I'd like to have a comment related to 5.2.
I'll second Director Weed's motion.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Sethi,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Is there a motion to adopt the consent calendar as amended?
Also move, John Weed.
Second. Judy can take it.
Okay, I'll second.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Sethi,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. So we will move on to item 5.2, the resolution adopting a mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program and approving the Valacitos channel maintenance project. I will ask the general manager if he has any comments or a presentation to make on this item. Otherwise, I think Director Weed had a comment to make.
I had just basically a general comment. If the other board members request the full presentation, they might. But my concern, and I'll support the item, is if there was ever an example of why you want to avoid open channels for the conveyance of water, this is a mere maintenance project, which has run up an extraordinary cost. Acquisition of $50,000 per acre mitigation lands and sites for a maintenance of an existing channel. It shows how out of control and the lack of common sense in the environmental regulation that we have applied to this and the price we're paying to maintain and fund the staffs of these various regulatory agencies. It's a necessary evil, but if there's any way to keep, and including this project, to put the water in a pipe and bury it, it's to everyone's benefit, particularly the ratepayers. Thank you.
Can I make a comment too? In that, actually, I'd like to say that I kind of agree with Director Weed on this, in that, you know, this is an open channel. It's not a stream. I understand why we're having to do this. I support why we're going to have to do it. But I think this really causes problems when people do look at trying to help and assist the environment and make it good, and that we have to do things like this. This is not a stream. It's an open channel being used to transfer water where endangered species or, you know, species mitigation has suddenly become an issue, and huge dollars. We're going to have to go through it. It's there. This is the regulation, but I think it was well-meaning regulation that's gone wrong. And I just wanted to say that too, and that, you know, it's an open channel and we're spending incredible amounts of money on this, and staff. The reports on this thing are phenomenal. And a lot of people wonder why their rates are what they are. Well, this staff report, great as it is, took a lot of effort on their part to do maintenance on an open, man-made channel. That's all I got to say.
I have comments as well. At our earlier board presentations on this subject matter, I expressed, and I think I've had the support of staff, that with my vote to go with the preliminary repairs right now, what I really wanted to see was a permanent fix and like a pipeline. And so I believe the commitment from staff was to develop engineering plans so that we would have a permanent solution in place by 2030 or the early 2030s. And what I had also expressed was that we need a solution that lasts through the end of the century. And so I am hopeful that we are still committed to that strategy. Number two, if it was never discussed in any of our meetings where we did provide staff with approval to move forward with this project exercise, that there were these very large mitigation costs. And we've approved at the last meeting a certain dollar amount that may actually expand. And so I'm really disappointed that those mitigation costs were not, that information was not provided to the board, and that we were approving a project plan here without being able to take that into consideration. And so I'm still supportive of the project, but I just wish that we had had the full information, you know, when we were considering this earlier. And again, I hope that we will develop the engineering design and plans to put a permanent fix in place. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Ed Stevenson. If I could just add a little bit of information. Just to confirm, we do have a project to install a pipeline replacement for the Valacitos channel in the CIP that we're going to be proposing to the board. You'll see that at the financial workshop next week. And also with regard to mitigation costs, we have provided staff's estimate of the overall project costs and to the board previously, and that includes the mitigations that we expect would be required, including the mitigations that the board had seen at the prior board meeting.
Mr. Stevenson, I beg to differ with you here. I don't recall seeing any mitigation cost estimates when we were approving the project. I didn't see it until our last board meeting when we had to approve it. And then there was no way to go backward on the project. So please accept my memory for what it is right now. Maybe I'm wrong.
No problem.
Thank you for those comments. Are there any other comments that directors wish to make?
John Weed, very briefly. Another aspect which was rolled into this overall project, I believe, was a repair of a couple of 100 feet of dirt road, which was going to be about $250,000, and mitigation plus. So it was running the better part of $1 million, I recall, just to do a little bit of repair on a dirt road running along this channel. We've rolled that in, but the board objected at that time. And those same objections, I think, are felt by anyone who would observe it in a view. And to the extent that we can recognize that avoiding open channels, including Alameda Creek, is to the benefit of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weed. Is there a motion on this item?
I'll move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Directors Weed,
Aye, reluctantly.
Gunther,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Sethi,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Thank you. We will move on now to item 5.4, our public hearing tonight. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome the public and your participation in this evening's public hearing. This public hearing will be on the draft 2020 to 2025 Urban Water Management Plan, also known as the UWMP, Water Shortage Contingency Plan, and addendum to the 2015 to 2020 UWMP, the Reduced Reliance on the Delta through Improved Regional Water Self-Reliance Appendix. Thank you for attending online and by phone. Now, I'd like to review the ground rules for the public hearing. I'll open the public hearing and ACWD staff will make a presentation. Upon conclusion of the presentation, the board and ACWD staff will receive public comments and/or protests. The board and staff will receive all comments without responding. Upon conclusion of the public comments and/or protests, the board will request input from staff, respond to questions and comments that are raised by the public, deliberate on the issues, and then close the public hearing. Each member of the public has 5 minutes to comment. We will require strict compliance with this time limit so that everyone is treated equally. Again, staff will provide you with 15 seconds advance warning and will let you know when time is up. Since this hearing is being conducted online and by teleconference, persons who wish to make public comments can indicate so verbally when we open the public comment portion of this hearing. When making public comments, please be sure to unmute your own phone line or computer microphone so that you may be heard. For those participating online that may not have a microphone on their computer, please dial in by phone at the number given on the agenda. If you're participating online and we are unable to hear you during the public comment portion of this hearing, please use the chat box feature of the Zoom interface to get the attention of our board secretary. Please state your name and service address when making a verbal comment as well. Providing this information is voluntary. With that, we will open the public hearing for the following items. Firstly, the draft 2020 to 2025 Urban Water Management Plan. Secondly, the Water Shortage Contingency Plan. And thirdly, the addendum to the 2015 to 2020 UWMP, the Reduced Reliance on the Delta through Improved Regional Water Self-Reliance Appendix. Staff will now make a presentation, and I ask you to refrain from asking questions or making comments until the public comment portion of the public hearing. With that, I will turn it over to our general manager.
Thank you, President Akbari. So as you mentioned, staff is very, very proud to present the Urban Water Management Plan for the board's review, as well as to receive public comments this evening. And to begin that process, Laura Heides, our Water Resources Manager, will kick it off.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. So tonight, and I should note that we have several staff online here tonight in support of this item. We're very excited to be here. So I'll kick it off. California's Urban Water Management Planning Act, Water Code Sections 10610 et sec, requires all urban water suppliers that supply more than 3,000 acre-feet of water annually or have more than 3,000 customers to prepare and adopt an Urban Water Management Plan, or UWMP, and Water Shortage Contingency Plan. While the Water Shortage Contingency Plan is included in the UWMP, it is also a document that stands alone. The UWMP is required to be updated every 5 years, and the current due date is July 1st, 2021. In addition, pursuant to California Code of Regulations, Title 23, Section 5003, the district must prepare and adopt a reduced reliance on the Delta through improved regional water self-reliance appendix, or the Reduced Reliance on the Delta Appendix, for short, as part of the 2020 to 2025 UWMP, as well as appending it to the 2015 to 2020 UWMP by following the process for amending the 2015 to 2020 UWMP. The district's previous UWMP was adopted by the board on June 9th, 2016. Staff has prepared and distributed the draft 2020 to 2025 UWMP, Water Shortage Contingency Plan, and the Reduced Reliance on the Delta Appendix, which we collectively refer to as the UWMP documents for simplicity, in accordance with the Urban Water Management Planning Act and related regulations. At the April 13th, 2021 board meeting, the board received a report on the UWMP documents. On April 23rd, 2021, the district posted on its website a notice of public hearing stating that the UWMP documents were available and that the board would hold a public hearing on May 13th, 2021 to receive and consider comments on the draft UWMP documents. Staff also sent notices directly to numerous local cities and other stakeholder agencies, which are listed in the written staff report. On April 23rd, 2021, the draft UWMP documents were also posted on the district's website and made available for review from our homepage at the UWMP website. As of the start of this hearing, the district has not received any written comments on the plan. Board adoption of the UWMP documents tonight will help meet the district's strategic plan goal 2.4, plan for future water supplies. Tonight's presentation on this item will be given by Ms. Kelsey Oshiro, Water Resources Engineer, and focuses on traditional and innovative supply side and demand side resources in developing the UWMP documents to ensure water supply reliability. While this effort doesn't focus on water rates per se, the Water Shortage Contingency Plan does discuss the financial implications of a water shortage emergency as required. Given the dry conditions we're experiencing and the nexus with UWMP dry year planning, staff will also be providing a water supply update and overview of our proposed water conservation outreach initiative under the next agenda item tonight. And at next week's special board meeting and budget workshop on May 19th, staff is planning to present a few financial scenarios that take into account potential customer conservation scenarios. We know at least one board member is interested in having a detailed discussion on the financial implications of drought, and the workshop will provide an opportunity to delve into those details. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Oshiro to begin the presentation on this item. Ms. Oshiro?
Great, thank you, Ms. Heides. Let me quickly share my screen. Everyone can see my screen now. Great, thank you. Thank you. Great, good evening, board, members of the public. We are here tonight to provide a brief presentation on the public hearing and adoption of the 2020 to 2025 Urban Water Management Plan, Water Shortage Contingency Plan, and an addendum to the 2015 to 2020 Urban Water Management Plan to include the reduced reliance on the Delta Appendix. The purpose of this presentation tonight is to invite the public to comment on 1, the 2020 to 2025 Urban Water Management Plan, or the UWMP, 2, the Water Shortage Contingency Plan, or the WSCP, and 3, the reduced reliance on the Delta Addendum to the 2015 to 2020 UWMP. And we'll hold the public hearing has commenced, and pending any comments received this evening, we will seek adoption of items 1 through 3 above. This slide provides a summary of the numerous steps leading to tonight's public hearing, and this adheres strictly to DWR's requirements and guidelines, which were very prescriptive. We've coordinated with appropriate agencies and notified them as well. We've notified the counties and cities. We've also made publicly available the draft 2020 to 2025 UWMP, WSCP, and reduced reliance on the Delta Addendum to the 2015 to 2020 UWMP. We've also encouraged community input, and we reviewed these draft Urban Water Management Plan documents at the April 13th board meeting, and I've presented this information in a few other board meetings before that as well. We've also published notices for tonight's hearing.
I'm just going to jump in. If you're changing slides, I feel like you might be advancing slides, but at least on my screen, I'm still seeing just the title slide.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Thank you, President Albright. Let me try to share it on the screen again. Are you seeing the steps? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you. Yes, definitely let me know if anything else comes up. Thank you. So yes, so just summarizing this slide is just going through the steps that led up to tonight's public hearing and coordinating with the appropriate agencies. We notified the counties and cities and notified the appropriate agencies as well. We've made public the UWMP documents, and we've encouraged community input as well as reviewed these draft documents at the April 13th board meeting, as well as a few other board meetings prior to that. And we've published notices for tonight's hearing for 2 weeks. So on to the next slide. The next 3 slides are summaries of the 3 documents, which we've described in detail in previous board meetings. So these are just overviews of what they are. The first document is the 2020 to 2025 UWMP. It's a legal requirement that requires the district to report on our ability to meet current and anticipated future water demands with existing and future water supplies. It projects out to the year 2045, and we're required to update this every 5 years. And we're presenting this to the board for adoption pending public comments received. The second item is the WSCP, and this outlines actions to achieve reductions under 6 standardized water shortage levels. The last cycle had 4 standardized water shortage levels, and this cycle now has 6, which ranges from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and greater than 50% shortages. This WSCP is included in the UWMP as Chapter 10. However, DWR has required us in this cycle to include it have it as a standalone document. And so we're presenting this WSCP to the board for separate adoption pending public comments received. The next slide is the third item, which is the reduced reliance on the Delta Appendix. This was based on methodology recommended by DWR to show our reduced reliance on the Delta watershed supply since 2010. This provides consistency with the Delta plan, and it shows our improved regional self-reliance. This is also included in our 2020 to 2025 UWMP as an Appendix J, and this will also be included. This will also be a separate document as an addendum to the 2015 to 2020 UWMP, and as presented to the board for separate adoption as well, pending public comments received. This is a summary of our updates to our drafts as presented. which includes grammatical and formatting edits. We removed the use of recycled water at Hayward Marsh from the 2020 to 2025 UWMP based on discussions and correspondence with Union Sanitary District or USD. And we have updated and will be updating appendices B, which is the water supply uncertainty supplemental information, which has been updated based on the most recent information we've received. Appendix F is the district board's resolutions for these documents. Appendix I is the public outreach notices and submittal of these documents, so that will be completed at the end of this process. And an updated Appendix G, which includes all of DWR tables, which includes their most latest updates to their tables. And all of this will be included in the final 2020 to 2025 UWMP. And the overarching bottom line is that there's no changes to the results or conclusions from any of these edits. We'll be also incorporating any changes decided by the board at tonight's meeting. Upon finalization of tonight's actions, we will be submitting the 2020 to 2025 UWMP, the WSCP, and the 2015 to 2020 UWMP amendment electronically to DWR via their WUI data portal, and we'll also be uploading these standardized DWR forms and tables. Copies will be distributed to the California State Library, the cities of Fremont, Hayward, New York, and Union City, and Alameda County. An electronic copy will be also available on the district website. So now it is our staff's recommendation to, one, conduct a public hearing, which is already commenced, to receive and hear comments on the draft 2020 to 2025 Urban Water Management Plan, the Water Shortage Contingency Plan, and the Addendum to the 2015 to 2020 Urban Water Management Plan to append the reduced reliance on the Delta through improved regional water self-reliance appendix. And two, by resolution, adopt the 2020 to 2025 Urban Water Management Plan, the Water Shortage Contingency Plan, and the Addendum to the 2015 to 2020 Urban Water Management Plan to append the reduced reliance on the Delta through improved regional water self-reliance appendix.
Great, thank you, Ms. Oshiro. With that, we will open the public comment portion of the hearing. Will the district secretary please unmute the meeting participants so they may make public comments, if not already done. So members of the public who wish to comment on the 2020 to 2025 Urban Water Management Plan may do so now. Please raise your hand in the Zoom app and we will call on you one at a time. Mr. Kennett.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, President Akbari. In general, I have had the chance to glance through both the Urban Water Management Plan as well as the associated Water Shortage Contingency Plan, and I find that most all of the suggestions and procedures that are outlined are in good order. I am very glad to see that the district has made adequate plans and incentives to reduce the reliance on water on a per capita basis for the customers of the district. As we are entering our second dry year, it's become quite clear that the supply of water in California is becoming less and less reliable. Admittedly unscientific tally of the last 21 years revealed that we had 11 years of what we would consider below normal precipitation, while we only had 6 years of above average and 4 years very close to the average. So we're certainly seeing more dry years than wet years. And that just makes it more critical for us to look at all the ways where we can make do with less water coming into the system. So I do support the adoption of the aforementioned documents. I'm not exactly sure that it's contained within. It's a fairly long document. The only other comment I would make is that the district does rely on the water banking at Semi-Tropic. I am concerned, I've made this comment on previous board meetings. I am somewhat concerned about the ability of the district to adequately access those reserves, especially as we are being called upon to reduce the reliance on the Delta. The flows through the Delta are a integral part of the system to move water back from semi-tropic, because in reality, as we all know, we don't move water back from the semi-tropic, we wheel the water. So given the fact that we are seeing more dry years, we are seeing potential greater impairments to flows through the Delta, as well as potential issues with downstream acceptance of water from the Kern County aquifer. That just further makes critical the need to have contingency plans when and if we have below average precipitation in our watersheds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennan. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a comment on the 2020 to 2025 Urban Water Management Plan? Hearing none, I will ask if there are any members of the public who wish to comment on the Water Shortage Contingency Plan. Hearing none and seeing no hands raised in the Zoom.
President Akbari, we have one member of the public, I believe, that is calling in on the phone. You might want to ask specifically for phone comments.
Yeah, if there's anyone who is calling in using their phone, you can bring yourself off of mute and let us know if you wish to make a comment. And again, hearing none, I will ask if there are any members of the public who wish to comment on the addendum to the 2015 to 2020 UWMP to append the reduced reliance on the Delta appendix. And again, hearing none. Is there, just for confirmation, is there anyone who wished to make a comment during this public hearing who did not have a chance to do so? Hearing none, I believe we have also received no written comments. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Great, we will move on to board comments then. Are there any directors who wish to ask a question of staff or legal counsel based on the comments that we've heard tonight, the comments and presentation?
None from Director Sethi, thank you. Good work, by the way, by staff. I want to thank the staff. I know this took a long time to develop, and I'm not only appreciative of it, but I think our entire community should be very appreciative of it as well. So thank you very much.
I'd like to comment good work by the staff. It's documents like it's the research and the work into a document like this that puts us where we are today. It's not that we don't care about the drought. We care a lot about the drought. It shows here. And the staff does, and that's why we are today, and we're not demanding water, restrictions yet. May have to, we'll see, but it's the staff's hard work, and that shows through this document. Thank you very much.
I just want to echo what Director Gunther and Director Sethi has said. Really, thank you, staff. This is a heavy lift. Every time we do an update. And yeah, I pretty much just parallel what Director Gunther said. It's the hard work and the planning that put us actually in a fairly unusual and very good spot in the drought this year. So thank you.
If there's no other director's comments, I'll echo what's been said already.
I was on mute. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Director Weed.
No one want to miss this. First question is of staff. The Governor Newsom has just issued a proclamation with a number of changes in the ground rules related to water. Are we going to review our water shortage contingency plan in light of the governor's recent proclamation? And will there be a subsequent report based on that?
Are we okay to go ahead and answer that question?
Yes, that was a question, yes.
Thanks, thanks, Director Weed. Good question. The Governor Newsom's proclamation, we'll talk a little bit more about the implications of that in our next item. That is sort of a dry year, more immediate proclamation. So we aren't planning to necessarily revisit the UWMP with that specifically in mind, but we are thinking and planning around that for this year.
Okay.
So hopefully that addresses your question.
All right, great. Next are my concerns I've stated in the past on what I would hope to see in at least the next round of the contingency of our urban water management plan. That would be hopefully in the interim, the full operation and reoperation of Del Valle Reservoir. I've called it the scandal, huge, what could make us drought resilient for the Bay Area. And it's not being used, so we could put park facilities in the bottom of an existing reservoir. It's a true tragedy. And hopefully there's an opportunity to address that, particularly given the current crisis. Next, Niles Canyon Aqueduct, I believe, is an extraordinary facility that can bring water through a pipe outside of Alameda Creek directly to our underground reservoir, the Niles Cone. And working with San Francisco for a regional response to that would make sense. I do not support the use of recycled water. It's economically unfeasible because we're only going to recover, according to our own staff, 30%. By the time you treat it, recover 30% and then retreat it to send off to San Francisco or wherever, you're $6,000 to $7,000 an acre foot water. That's economically unrealistic. Semi-tropic is vulnerable to the Sigma process. We have 150,000 acre feet in storage, which is critical to our plan. And I think we need to come up with some alternatives to that, or recognize the vulnerability of the Sigma process, which by March of next year, by a simple edict of the state saying that the overdrafting of semi-tropic is not to be permitted. We might buy some time under the current emergency criteria, but it's under current law for overdrafting of a groundwater basin. It violates that basic principle. I would hope that I'm looking forward to a separate discussion of the physical realities of conservation to our district. And the point is that we have a rate structure which rewards us when we sell water, penalizes us when we conserve water. And there's an extraordinary impact on that. We've looked at staged rates of up to 50% rate increases because of conservation, while we make the inane argument that we have a positive cost benefit result from other conservation efforts or AMI. So an honest and honorable discussion of that issue would be, I look forward to. So thank you for the efforts. This is a 5-year plan. It comes up for review every 5 years, and hopefully we can revisit before then. Thank you.
President Akbari, at the board's pleasure, Director Weed made some comments about semi-tropic. We can respond to that in the context of the urban water management plan for, long-range planning purposes, or we can respond in the next item when we talk about the water supply outlook, which is a reflection of current water supply conditions, again, at the board's pleasure. And then regarding the financial implications of conservation, what I would suggest is that at the financial planning workshop on May 19th, staff is planning to present a few financial scenarios that take into account potential customer conservation scenarios. And that would be a good time to talk about the potential financial issues associated with, asking our customers to conserve. So those are two staff suggestions.
President
I think we can.
I would like to comment briefly as well on one of the comments made about semi-tropic, if I could.
Sure. Do you want staff to respond first, or would you like to have your response?
I'd like to go
before
ahead
staff?
first on this one because this goes back historic. I was on the board when we first started this process. And Director Weed is correct. The basin is overdraft down there, and this was set up before Sigma. However, water banking, groundwater banking is still considered by all levels of the state, environmental movement, as a method to work on these overdraft basins. They're not going to stop that because this is one of the tools they use to try to assist that problem. I was there on the ground level with Director Weed when we started this, and that was one of the reasons it was started. I just wanted to point that out, that true, it could be used, possibly an overextended basin, Sigma, but the spirit of what we were doing there was done for the environment, to fix that basin, to help that basin recover. So I seriously don't think we're going to see that. That's all I have to say on that.
If I could give a quick clarification on the semi-tropic, which Santa Clara Valley Water District has some serious concerns. They have 600,000 acre feet in storage there, and then Zone 7 as well. The great bulk, over 90% of the water in semi-tropic, comes to the South Bay Aqueduct contractors. The challenge you have is all of the water we're getting is overdraft. The agricultural interests have claimed all the rights for the safe yield. The water which we have been promised and bought into is in the basin, but there's no recharge plan for it. And there's a planned overdraft to the year 2040. That has to pass Sigma now. And that report has gone in asking for the ability to overdraft the Sigma-tropic reservoir, groundwater reservoir, through the year 2040. I think we're all somewhat concerned that the State Water Resource Control Board is going to allow that overdraft to continue.
I think you left out Met there, Director Weed.
Well, the Met receives the water. We get the exchange of the water. So the Met will receive, but they don't, I believe, have an ownership interest in the groundwater. They will receive it once it's removed, but it's our water to be traded and exchanged with the Met. We're the ones who made the investment, not the Met, to the bulk of that water, my understanding.
I need staff comment on that because I believe it's the opposite.
I would like to make a comment myself, if I may. And this is for clarification for members of the public. I see we have a member of the League of Women Voters joining us tonight. Thank you very much. Water banking is a very important element of our water supply outlook for the district. And I consider this an insurance investment by the district. So our ratepayers have been paying for us to store water in this water bank. And we use, let's say 40,000 acre feet a year in the district, somewhere on average like that, in the peak months and 28 to 32 in the wintertime. So with 150,000 acre feet of water in Kern County. I want to put this in perspective. That's about 3.5 to 4 years of water that we have banked away as insurance and as a supply contingency for drought periods like we're going through right now. And we have used quantities of that water in past years to help fulfill our water supply commitments to the community. So that water bank is not free. Our ratepayers have paid for it, and we expect to use it from time to time. And it's the insurance policy on this district. I think it's one of the wisest investments this district has ever made. And so I don't want to deprecate the value of it and have people in the community receive a message from our board that it is entirely at risk. It is not, at least in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sethi.
On that point, there were some slides. I had one of them shared with the board that were out of a Santa Clara Valley water supply exploratory committee meeting that went into the risk and the extraordinary risk of semi-tropic under the SGMA legislation. There's also some environmental issues of the water quality. 89 of the 430 wells in semi-tropic have found are above the maximum contaminant level for 1,2,3 trichloropropane, TCP, a relatively an emerging contaminant.
Director Weed, that's not our problem. That we're not receiving that water northward up through the state. We're taking delivery from Oroville through the Delta.
But the Met
don't confuse the issue, please.
The Met, we're going to do an exchange. The Met has indicated they have concerns about accepting water from semi-tropic because of the contamination. If they won't accept it, we have no water to trade. So yeah, we're not going to get that contaminated water, but will the Met even accept it? And can they avoid that contaminated water and shipping it south? That's all part of the exchange. This is a increasingly vulnerable resource. Now, on the positive side, we have semi-tropic is required to financially reimburse us if they cannot supply the water from the DIL, and that may be a source of litigation. So we have some contractual protections, but the water supply itself has to be seen as significantly vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I think staff should be given an opportunity to respond on a number of those items that were brought up.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, a lot of issues being raised, and I think Water Resources staff does have a few facts that they would like to share with the board to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Shaver. Just to a quick note that Metropolitan is a partner in the Semi-Tropic Water Bank. In fact, the biggest partner. So we all do participate in putting and taking water out of that bank. And besides just that item, I know this is an issue that is of great interest to the board, and we've been following it closely. And I do want to turn it over for a moment to Mr. Nizer, who's on the line, who has been keeping very close track of semi-tropic this year and can share a few highlights.
Sure, thank you, Ms. Heides. Director Weed, you have shared a great number of concerns, and I don't want to kind of go through them all, even though I did write them down. I would just sort of point to the broader picture here, as Director Sethi alluded to. It's an investment in, or rather an insurance policy in the future. It has worked very well and has been demonstrated to work in the most critically dry periods, far more critical than we ever conceived of when we signed on to this project that we had in 2014. And even right now, it is the lion's share of the water supply that we'll be taking delivery of this year, in fact, as it was back in 14 and 15. So it has proven itself in the past And as we presented recently, even our ability to use it to reduce operating costs, we've pretty much paid for the participation in the program just on cost optimization alone. So in many ways, the benefits for dry year operation have been funded through some other benefits of the program. So that's backwards looking. Looking forward, is Sigma something that's out there? Yes, it is. There's things to be resolved. There's some conflicts to be resolved throughout the whole Central Valley. Does it deliver some uncertainty to the program? It does. But we have protection. The water is actually our water, cannot be relied on for semi-tropic, for the banking, or rather the agricultural interest down there. It is our water and has to be returned to us. So it is protected under Sigma. And the issues which you've raised about, Met needing to accept the water, it's actually not Met's decision. First of all, Met does participate in the program, but the pump-in operations is simply a matter of, does it meet MCL's, the contamination requirement or limits for operation of the project. It's not an opinion of any user of the aqueduct. It's just a matter of, does it meet the requirements under the law? And it does. So that hasn't been an issue. But what I really want to emphasize moving forward is that we know that groundwater banking, as Director Gunther said, is a critical part of the California Water Plan. And we know that DWR is currently valuing that water as important for operating the state water project in these most critical of years. We've been in continuous coordination with Department of Water Resources, and they are treating the return of that water with every bit of priority as the current year Table A water. And so it just tips the hand at just how important the bank supplies are in these critical years for the entire state. So there's a lot of dependence on this project there. As Mr. Ken N mentioned earlier, it does seem counterintuitive in terms of it not being a reduction in Delta reliance, because it does critically depend on the operation of the Delta, but it's not an escalating use. And so there's sort of an understanding that this is a necessary part of making the state water system work. So there's a lot of protections in here that while we will continue to monitor, we are not concerned about losing any value. It may become a little bit less available in critical years in the future, or it may become more costly as water treatment's needed for any contaminations. But these are just management issues that we will face when we get to that bridge.
Well, thank you for the input. We're in agreement that in the past has been an extraordinarily beneficial program. I would note that Valley Water has directed their staff to board to look at alternative groundwater banking opportunities because of specific concerns related to the overdrafting at semi-tropic.
Thank you. And we are in coordination with Valley Water as well as Zone 7 and participating in ongoing studies as well. We always evaluate every option that's out there.
Thank you.
Thank you to staff. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none. I'll just echo some of the sentiments that were already shared by the board. I really appreciate the work that staff has put into these documents. They help provide a framework and a guideline for our community, and hopefully our community will look on these documents and have a little bit more confidence in our preparation for water shortage emergencies. So thank you again to staff for working on this. With that, we will now close the public hearing.
Hey, President Ari, I do want to make one other comment. And again, I'm saying this to the members of the public that are here, including the League of Women Voters. I do have one disappointment about this effort. This is a tremendous effort that the staff has put in to produce a document that should be welcomed by the public, members of the public, and we should be hearing feedback from them. When I follow the same documents, the urban water management plans that are being issued by all of the other respective districts, water districts around the Bay Area, and we're all on the same timeline to produce this document, the public is really involved. I mean, you go down to Santa Clara Valley Water District or Zone 7 or East Bay Mud, and there are dozens and dozens of people involved in providing feedback to their boards. You have all of the environmental organizations that are involved in as participants in this process. And so from a public standpoint, I'm really disappointed that we have no public feedback. That's, it's just mind-boggling that we're the singular community in the Bay Area where we don't generate any public feedback on what is the most vital document for the water supply future of our district. So let me leave it at that. It's, you know, I'm chagrined at the lack of public participation and input.
You know, at the risk of keep raising issues, let me note that one of the options we should hopefully investigate and follow the example is Irvine Ranch. Irvine Ranch had invested in Semi-Tropic and then bailed, and they were bought out by Semi-Tropic for their major investment, and went on to purchase farmland that they could fallow, where they owned the groundwater basin, that they were their groundwater reservoir that they were relying on, and were not subject to agricultural interest overdrafting the basin and having to rely on overdraft situations. They worked in cooperation with Rio Bravo Water Agency and have been very successful. So there are other models and options for groundwater banking in the Delta where the urban district actually owns the land and truly controls the groundwater as a result, and is not essentially a secondary tenant. So I would encourage, as we go forward, we look into some of those other options. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I did actually see a hand go up from a member of our public. So I'm happy to take that comment if Mr. Kennan still has a comment to share.
Oh, I was just going to respond to Director Sethi. I'm disappointed, but I understand that you don't want to consider my comments as public comments. Thank you.
No, I honestly, Mr. Kennan, I do appreciate your comments. I meant, please take my comments in a broader sense. You're a regular at our meetings. We appreciate the input, but there is a clear lack of participation by the broader public in the Tri-City area in the water issues that we're dealing with.
Mr. Nishimura, we do appreciate you always joining us at all of our meetings and sharing your comments. It's always thoughtful and insightful. I will, I think now conclude our public hearing, and I will ask if there is a motion from the board.
I'll make the motion to move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Sethi,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Great. That concludes item 5.4. With that, we'll move to item 5.5, water supply outlook and water conservation campaign. And I will turn it over to our general manager.
Yes, thank you, President Akbari. As the board is aware, the Urban Water Management Plan sort of forms the framework of our 5-year water supply reliability planning, and also meets the requirements that are set forth by the state of California to all major water agencies. So staff was thinking that now that we've done this item, we have the short-term issue of 2 critically dry years in a row. So we wanted to talk a little bit about what the current water supply conditions are for the district, and also provide you with a preview of our proposed water conservation campaign that we think is appropriate given the conditions that we are finding ourselves in. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Heides first, followed by Ms. Gonzalez to talk about the water conservation campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. On April 21st, 2021, Governor Newsom directed state agencies to take immediate action to bolster drought resilience and prepare for impacts on communities, businesses, and ecosystems if the current dry conditions in the state extend into a 3rd year. At that time, the governor proclaimed a regional drought emergency for the Russian River watershed in Sonoma and Mendocino counties, where reservoirs are at record lows following 2 critically dry years. This past Monday, May 10th, Governor Newsom expanded the state's drought emergency proclamation to cover 41 counties, including Alameda County, and announced plans for $5.1 billion in investments to bolster the state's drought response and water resilience. Accordingly, staff has continued to closely monitor state and regional drought-related activities, assess changing conditions and availability of the district's water supplies, and prepare for additional outreach to keep the district's customers informed and engaged as conditions evolve. Under item 5.4 tonight, the board adopted the district's urban water management plan and water shortage contingency plan. And while we are glad to have these plans up to date and ready to go, we are not at the point of declaring a water shortage emergency at this time. We are, however, ramping up our planning efforts to prepare for worsening conditions and to encourage and support customer conservation efforts. Tonight, we have 3 team members that will be making a joint presentation with the latest updates on current water supply outlook and plans for bolstering the district's water conservation messaging and activities. Leonard Ash, Water Supply Supervisor, Renee Gonzalez, Public Affairs Supervisor, and Stephanie Nevins, Water Conservation Supervisor. I will now turn it over to Mr. Ash to kick off the beginning of the presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Heides. Good evening, Mr. President, directors, staff, and public participants. Last month, the board received a water supply update. And since this agenda item includes multiple related issues, I'll focus tonight on current conditions locally and statewide, as well as highlighting new items since the last water supply update presentation in April. Next slide, please. All right, we'll start off with a look at our local precipitation. We received 0.16 inches of local rainfall in April, and that brings our total for the water year to date to 8.4 inches, as shown by the green line. As this graph demonstrates, we historically receive very little additional precipitation for the remainder of the water year. So while this will not be the driest local water year on record, 2021 is on track to be among the lowest on record. Next slide, please. And looking at the Northern Sierra 8 Station Index as one indication of the health of the Delta and the state water project supplies, we see only modest gains in precipitation in the Northern Sierra over the last month, with 22.9 cumulative inches of precipitation. As mentioned last month, California Department of Water Resources has confirmed that the first 6 months of this water year, from October through March, was the 3rd driest on record. And additionally, DWR staff is closely monitoring conditions to adjust reservoir inflow forecasts, as they're seeing less of the snowpack is arriving into storage in their reservoirs. Next slide, please. Reservoir conditions around the state continue to show many major reservoirs, especially in Northern California, near or below their historical average levels for this time of year. I like to point out Lake Oroville, which is 41% full, which is 50% of its average for this time of year, while San Luis Reservoir is 48% full, which is 57% of historical average for this time of year. The state water contractor's Table A allocation for the state water project remains at 5%. And next slide, please.
Can I make a quick comment on this slide?
Please.
San Francisco PUC noted that Don Pedro is at average. They have it was argued by Steve Ritchie, their head of water enterprise, that the San Francisco system, the Hetch-Hetchy system, has been very fortunate of being the one place in the state that has not encountered a water shortage. So that portion, 20% of our water supply, is at historic averages.
That's correct. And SFPUC supplies do make up 20% on average of our water supply portfolio. It is one of the most reliable water supplies for that reason. They have to manage their system under a different set of subscribers and their demands. And compared to the State Water Project, they don't have the same amount of subscribers that are making demands on their system year over year. But you're correct that the Don Pedro, the water bank that they operate in conjunction with the irrigation districts out there is anticipated to almost fill this year. And their Hetch-Hetchy reservoir is anticipated to be full this year.
They had a unique metro, the waterfall in their area of the rainfall was an anomaly to the rest of the state. It was a positive anomaly.
They have, again, I think it's also a question of their management and their demands on their system. And so that does work in their favor for sure.
I agree. And they have about 6 years of drought storage in reservoirs within the Bay Area. So thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. I'll look, well, I think it's slide number 5, please.
Hey, Leonard.
Yes.
Director Sethi, I have a comment here too about the reservoirs in the state, which I found really interesting reading some various articles on the subject. That, you know, normally when we have a good snowpack and everything, we look forward to the spring runoff and refilling of our reservoirs. But as the governor noted, and our climate scientists and everything at DWR, a lot of the snowpack actually went into the ground because the ground was so dry because of conditions over the last decade that it went directly into the ground instead of running off down into our rivers and creeks and thus down into the reservoirs. And they were saying that you really need to have 2 to 3 feet or even 4 feet of moisture in the ground to prevent, you know, the absorption and thus create the runoff that we need into our reservoirs. So really interesting environmental conditions up in the mountains right now.
Yes, Director Sethi, thank you for that comment. That is something that, as I mentioned, Department of Water Resources staff is closely monitoring that issue, as they do count on a certain volume of the snowpack to melt and provide runoff into the reservoir system. So as you mentioned, very dry conditions in the hills, and so it's not at all surprising that some of that gets absorbed into the system before it makes it to the reservoirs. But this year in particular, we're seeing a greater, that happening to a greater extent than in the past. With slide 5, I want to present the Noaa forecasts. The map on the left has since been updated since these slides were prepared. And the outlook for next week indicates below normal precipitation probabilities for our service area and for most of Northern California. And if you're looking even farther ahead to the remainder of the month, which is the map on the right, those probabilities remain generally similar, where we can expect below normal chances of precipitation going into June. Next slide, please. And as I'm sure you've heard, the U.S. Drought Monitor has reclassified our service area and the Alameda Creek watershed as we've removed from moderate and severe drought designations into the red color, which is extreme drought intensity. And that's consistent with much of the state. And as Ms. Heides mentioned, the governor has expanded the emergency drought declaration to 41 counties. And the U.S. Drought Monitor maps show the increasing intensity of the drought as the water year has unfolded. With continued dry conditions expected, those drought conditions are expected to persist across the state. Next slide, please. And last month, I noted that staff would continue to evaluate the costs and benefits of participating in the dry year transfer program again in 2021. And I wanted to provide this board with an update that staff has determined the volume of water available to us this year will not be large enough to justify continued participation for this year. Water supply and planning has taken a conservative approach by not counting on any dry year transfer program water to meet our 2021 demands. That being said, staff is continuing to monitor for other opportunities for transfers in a dry year like this one.
Can I?
Yes, Mr. Weed, go ahead.
The dry year transfer program, I understood, required that we pay an ante to get involved. Did we choose not to pay that ante this year?
So I believe that question came up again, came up last month. We did pay a very small administrative fee for participation. However, we didn't have to put down any payments towards supplies. So we did have a little bit of money, which covered the time for various folks to look into participation this year. But it was a very minor cost.
But that door has not been closed. So because having paid that not modest cost, the door is still open if we decide to go with a dry year transfer.
For the particulars, I'll have to ask Mr. Nizer to chime in, but I believe at this point we've indicated that we won't be participating going forward.
That's correct. We pulled the plug. The north of Delta cost on that water was around $800. We lose about 30% in transit, so that water is starting to rival San Francisco in cost. But worse, there was about 200 acre feet for us, which is pretty much noise. So the value wasn't there. It'd be better just to buy more water from San Francisco. It's an indication of just what an extremely dry year it is because of the cutbacks. Land fallowing was already capped by the restrictions in supply. Crops couldn't be fallowed any further.
Thank you for that explanation.
Okay, to the second bullet point here, as Ms. Heides mentioned in the introduction, Governor Newsom expanded upon the April 21st proclamation of a state of emergency for Sonoma and Mendocino counties, and on May 10th included the Klamath River, Sacramento, San Joaquin Delta, and Tulare Lake watershed counties, and providing continued direction to state agencies for increased efforts to support the state's resiliency and meet critical water needs. So I just want to note that staff will monitor the actions of state agencies as they consider accelerated implementation of emergency regulations and other priorities that were outlined in that proclamation. To the third bullet, the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission recently requested that wholesale customers, such as ACWD, voluntarily reduce our summer purchases from the regional water system to levels that are at or below the 2019 summertime demands. But as this board knows, in January of 2021, the district did notify the PUC of anticipated increases in our purchases this year above the contractual minimum amount, so that those additional purchases can provide us with greater flexibility for water production operations. So we've already notified the PUC that we won't be able to meet that voluntary request for this summer. To the third point, due to recent, the fourth point, due to recent dry weather, district customer demands did increase in April, and forecasts for a dry conclusion to the rainy season, we expect that increased demands to continue in May as well. Last month, staff presented some dry year planning alternatives regarding the disposition of our carryover supplies, and I now want to note that district staff has continued to refine our planning for other dry year operations, looking at operational needs for scenarios if there is a decreased availability for state water project imports. But I do want to stress that we have ongoing coordination with DWR staff, and they've consistently maintained they intend to meet our requested delivery schedules this year. So this is only contingency planning so that staff can remain nimble to respond to any number of events which may affect changes in state deliveries. It's too early for modeling to accurately predict what the weather patterns might be for the next water year, but this contingency planning is useful not only later this year, but also into 2022 if we do see a third consecutive dry year. And that would be extremely challenging, not just for ACWD, but for the entire state. Next slide, please. So here's in detail our current water supply outlook. Again, along the top row, our anticipated water demand is 44,800 acre feet this year. And the center column shows the water supplies we have available to us. A 5% allocation from the State Water Project adds 2,100 acre feet to the 11,900 acre feet in carryover that we reserved last year in San Luis Reservoir. And as was mentioned earlier, we're not participating in the dry year transfer program this year. And our contracts with Semi-Tropic provide for 13,500 acre feet from our semi-tropic storage. And our SFPUC supply guarantee is 15,400 acre feet. And lastly, our portfolio includes local supplies from Lake Del Valle and our local groundwater basin. And so now I'll draw your attention to the column on the right, and that shows how we plan to meet the anticipated customer demands this year. We'll use 3,200 acre feet of our current carryover stored in San Luis and make full use of our semi-tropic contract as well, with 10,100 acre feet of SFPUC supplies. And again, that's more than our minimum purchase, but it gives us operational flexibility as we continue to evaluate PFAS considerations at our blending facility. We expect to use approximately 18,000 acre feet of our local supplies to cover the balance of our demands. And that way we'll be reserving this year's State Water Project allocation and the balance of our carryover to have at least 10,500 acre feet of water in carryover for next year if we get a third dry year. Next slide, please. So in summary, from water supply, firstly, 2021 is a critical dry year, second consecutive dry year, both locally and statewide. Secondly, the district customer demands are still well below 2013 levels before the previous drought, which is a major factor in our ability to meet our anticipated demands this year. The district has sufficient water supplies available in our water supply portfolio to meet 2021 demands, with some reserves for 2022. And thirdly, however, in the event we experience a third dry year, statewide water supplies collectively will be severely stressed, and we anticipate more critical water supply and conveyance implications, not just to the district, but statewide, if we do experience a third dry year. Next slide, please. And so I'll close my portion of the presentation with a list of our next steps. Staff will continue to monitor both water supply and delivery capability conditions while we coordinate with our partner agencies. Looking at the contract deliveries for all of semi-tropic banking partners, I just wanted to point out that the South Bay contractors will be receiving 37% of semi-tropics deliveries this year. So staff will continue to engage with DWR, Zone 7 and Valley Water, as well as semi-tropic and other partners as we coordinate return of those banked water supplies and collectively maximize use of our conveyance facilities. And lastly, staff continues to evaluate alternatives to our planning strategies, again, to remain nimble to adapt if conditions change. We'll continue to assess our customer response to this drought and to adjust water demand forecasts accordingly. And as noted earlier, lower customer demands have been so important in a dry year like this, which is why I'm pleased to turn everything over to our Public Affairs Supervisor, Ms. Gonzalez, who will discuss the launch of the Water Conservation Campaign. Ms. Gonzalez?
Thank you, Mr. Ash. Based on the information that Mr. Ash presented, I am pleased to present to you the proposed Water Conservation Campaign, a scalable campaign that can be adjusted as needed. The One Saves Water campaign is a public outreach water conservation campaign encourage customers for water conservation through easy and attainable actions, as well as provide images of unity and community. One action saves water, one person and each one of us can save water, and one community collectively can save water. We also want to recognize that our customers and our community have experienced many challenges over the past year and a half. We want conservation to be considered attainable without a burden. Doing one thing is simple. Next slide, please. So what you see here are proposed images that would be posted to our website homepage, acwd.org, with a link to our Drought Resource Center. The Drought Resource Center would be a clearinghouse for information and resources. We want our customers to feel empowered and that their water conservation efforts make a difference. One person can save water with their singular actions making a difference. Secondly, we want this campaign to celebrate our community. Collectively, as a community, we can work together in conservation efforts. Our hope is that as we advance the campaign, we are able to include members of the community as well in some of our outreach efforts. Next slide, please. These are proposed ads for social media and other uses, providing simple tips that can help save water. One action saves water. So one less leak. If you fix those leaking faucets, one less flush, one less load, or make sure that the clothes washer and dishwasher are full before you run them, and one less car wash. Let your car be a little dirty for a while. Next slide, please. So this is our proposed outreach plan. As I mentioned, we will utilize our website and our drought resource page, which would be acwd.org/drought. It would be a clearinghouse for all information, our fact sheet, a tip sheet with those easy, simple, attainable, actionable conservation efforts. Also links to our rebate pages and our water conservation page. Utilizing our social media, we are able to post to social media. It's inexpensive and reaches a broad audience. We have access to our bill inserts and our messages, our ACWD Aqueduct newsletter, which goes out to nearly 125,000 people. We're proposing yard signs, continue to use print media with our weekly Tri-City Voice ad. Of course, our stakeholder outreach, we maintain an active database of over 200 active and engaged stakeholders. Targeted outreach to members who have participated in previous conservation programs or our Help on Tap program. And then also outreach to underrepresented groups, reaching out to the Senior Citizen Commission and cultural groups. And lastly, school outreach. As we are nearing the end of the school year, but we still have an opportunity in working with Zunzun and directly with teachers to message our One Saves Water campaign. Next slide, please. This is our proposed schedule. We've been busy developing collateral and can launch the campaign if the board so chooses. We would do that with an issue of a news release. Also advising our stakeholders with direct email, our outreach via social media and school. In June, we would propose, or sooner, depending on the development of the collateral materials. We've got a lot of wheels in motion, so we're excited to get this to the board this evening, but would include multilingual outreach, reaching out to a vast audience and our community as a whole, our stakeholder outreach and underrepresented members of the community as well. And this would continue through June. Next slide, please. In July and August, we propose utilizing our ACWD Aqueduct newsletter. It's a bi-monthly bill insert, as I mentioned, going out to 125,000 individuals. And then September and onward, continue our outreach and of course, adjust as needed. Knowing that the water year begins October through December, of course, we would continue to evaluate conditions, as Mr. Ash mentioned as well, and adapt our plans for 2022. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Nevins, Water Conservation Supervisor. Ms. Nevins?
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez and Mr. Ash. I'm just really, I can't believe the work that's gone into this campaign in such a short period of time. So kudos to the public affairs team. Really awesome. And so the strategy for this year is to utilize this campaign, this One Saves Water campaign, and request conservation from our customers, but focus on behavior-based changes or short-term adjustments, and be consistent with the governor's executive order. So our customers have already been very conservative even since the last drought. So even though some of that's come back, and because it's been such a hard year, we don't want to push too much, but we want to get a little bit more conservation because we don't know what's going to happen next year. We also want to drive market transformation a little more quickly than normal. Rebate programs push markets to change, like to more water efficient clothes washer is a great example. Now you can't buy an inefficient washer out there. So we have these rebate programs and we want to push them a little bit more, enhance the rebates to get things going a little more quickly with that, and then accelerate some existing measures that we have in the Water Efficiency Master Plan. And so this is how we propose to do it. As you saw with the campaign, there are these one less messages. We're going to have messages for indoor and outdoor, simple, easy actions for the customers. We're going to balance that with our existing water use efficiency program offering, really push the smart controller rebates and the water efficient landscape rebates. And then we're going, and so this is all, we believe all of these actions that are as part of the campaign and then getting more interest in these rebates will equate to approximately 5 gallons per person per day savings. And you'll see we're not requesting a specific percentage. We're focusing on actions. But we do think this campaign and the statewide messaging could result in about a 5 to 10% reduction. And that's from off of current use. So below, which is well below 2013 use. And so there will be some discussion next week at the budget workshop on the impacts, potential impacts. So some of the proposed enhancements or acceleration of our conservation or water use efficiency programs is one thing is we're considering, and we would bring this to the board for approval in June, increasing the water efficient landscape rebate from $1 to $2 per square foot. This is consistent with what's going on in the region, and it really sends a good message to our customers. And there's a good potential that we could get some support through some state grant funds to do this type of program. And it's consistent with what happened last year during the last drought. The state had a program, they offered $2. We're gearing up for that. We of course plan to increase outreach to, for all our active measures. And then some consideration is being given to accelerate some of the measures that weren't planned to start yet. They were planned for fiscal year 23-24, or maybe we might try and really to increase the targeted numbers of accounts that we would reach for some of these measures. AMI, we're just in the beginning of that. We've got the POC, a few, just over 1,000 meters have been installed, but this does provide an opportunity to test this system for use during dry years. Our water shortage contingency plan includes AMI in the actions for monitoring use and for some enforcement. So we have an opportunity to look at the data this year and see how we would, and get ready for next year. If next year is a dry year and we're increasing those installations. So we're pretty excited about that. That's, that's a good investment for the district for being prepared for droughts. And also the work that was done for the urban water management plan, for the water shortage contingency plan, we're already looking at that. And we've got the water efficiency master plan. So all of these things that we've been working on are really setting us up to be prepared for this and future dry years. And I mentioned before coordination on state grant funding. We're going to be really keeping a close eye on that for potential funding for these things. So in summary, we'll continue to monitor water supply and the customer demand, develop and implement the water conservation campaign, develop the campaign elements and prepare for additional program activity. We do think that we're already seeing an increase in customer inquiries. So we believe that is going to continue, especially once we launch this campaign, and we'll provide updates and recommendations as drought conditions evolve. And so that's it for this presentation, and we're ready for your questions.
Great, thank you very much. Let me open it up first to the board. Are there any directors who wish to ask a question or make a comment?
I'd just like to make a quick comment on that public outreach program. Terrific work there. We had that at committee the other day, and just very, very nice job. Thank you.
I'd like to make a similar comment. Director Gunther and I were presented with a lot of this material just on Tuesday, and very impressive work from staff. I made the comment in the committee meeting that in my professional work in Silicon Valley, I have rarely seen such exemplary work. It reminded me of the work of a professional public relations advertising firm, and I even asked if we'd gone outside. So I think it's really to attribute to the team at the district that all of this was created in-house, and just terrific work. I can't say that enough. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you. The presentation and efforts are commendable. I believe one of the lessons learned in the last drought was that if we go into a serious drought in the eyes of the regional media, that will overwhelm anything we might be able to do as an individual district. Without distinction about our own requirements and needs and water supply, where we might even be much better shape than other neighboring districts. We saw that in a study done, I think in North Carolina, which looked at districts which had tiered rates and those that didn't. And they found the same level of conservation, 23%. But that was a regional media effort. We were along for the ride. And while you have a great program, I believe in a case of a serious drought and the media kicks in every report consistently, while your message is there, the real driver will be this regional media effort. And whether we put a lot of effort or a little effort into it, we're going to probably get the same basic result and the critical timeframes of water shortage in the state. So thank you.
Well, like Director Weed is saying, I concur with him, and which is the reason I do not support tiered rates, period.
If I may, President.
I did not also support the current conservation program, because I felt that when it's needed, that regional program comes in and it just dwarfs everyone.
So I just want to say staff did a really good job. I actually have the same question that Director Sackley has, that did we actually go outside and hire a consultant, because it's really, really well done. During my day job, I do some public outreach, and I do need to review outreach materials and do the layout. This is pretty incredibly done. Just a couple suggestions. One, to the extent possible, we could embed a link or address to our website on the rebates and ways to conserve water. That would be great, instead of just having a nice messaging says save water somewhere. We will give them a way to find out how to save water. And the second thing is a recommendation. I'm not quite sure how we could build it in, but last year we had some great videos on a day without water. If we could somehow bring that into this campaign, reuse some of those materials, because those videos are really compelling. If we could somehow build a nexus, that would be great. But otherwise, great job. This is pretty incredible. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo most of the same comments. I think the outreach program that we've developed is top notch. The only recommendation, and I think I heard you touch on this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be cool within our graphics to use folks from our local community. If I remember correctly, Washington Hospital, during their major campaign a couple of years ago, they used almost exclusively local community members as part of their graphics. And I think it just kind of helps, I think it helps, get the message across, especially when you see folks who you recognize. The only other comment, and this is also—
Director Akbari, staff is welcome to use me since I'm up for re-election next year.
We might have to defer to council on that. There might be some issues, but the other comment I would make is just on the language accessibility. I think I was actually talking to Mr. Shaver yesterday, and I was telling him that on the website, we do a great job of offering a lot of different language options. On some of the materials that we'll be providing, apart from those that are published on our website, if we have the opportunity to get those translated into at least a couple of languages, or at least put on there a little blurb mentioning that we have on our website this information in multiple languages, I think that would be good, and that would help get to those communities that traditionally we might not be reaching. Otherwise, again, I'm very appreciative of the work that staff has put in here. I will say I have a slight disagreement with Director Weed, and with all due respect. I think actually we have a good opportunity here when there is a large media campaign and folks are focused on conservation. They're going to be looking for local voices and local leadership. And I think if we can get ahead of that and have good documentation and good suggestions for our community, a good public outreach program, it I think can help us create more of a bond with our community and actually get them to I guess pay a little bit more attention to the operations of our local district here. So it's just a slight, I think maybe I'm seeing it as more of a positive than a negative, the media campaign. But that's just my 2 cents on that point. Other than that, I have no other comments. I would like to open it up to the public as well. So I'll give the opportunity now. If there's any members of the public who wish to make a comment, please raise your hand in the Zoom app or come off of mute. Hearing none and seeing no hands raised in the Zoom app, I will ask the directors if there's a motion.
I don't.
Unless we don't need a motion.
President Sethi, I don't believe that board action is required. We were just looking for input from the directors, which we have received. So I believe staff, we're fine. Thank you very much for your thoughtful comments. And we will get to work implementing all of these program initiatives.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Shaver. And my apologies. I thought there was a motion needed on this item. Well, with that, we will move on to, well, we completed item 5.6. We'll move on to item 6, to reports. And we'll start with item 6.1, board committee reports. Are there any questions or comments from the board on item 6.1? Or questions or comments from members of the public as well?
None from
Hearing
me.
none. Thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 6.2, and I'll open it up for board and public comments and questions. Mr. Ken N.
Thank you, President Akbari. After wading through an extremely long board packet, I think this does set the record for the length of a board packet. It's almost 900 pages long. I am glad to see the last 2 pages. As regulars to this meeting are familiar, I'm quite interested in the distribution hardness map. And I'm, again, glad to see that the district has met its target of 150 all throughout the district. And I see that great swaths of the district are below the USGS target of 125. So again, I commend the district on managing the overall hardness that its customers see. It's actually quite interesting. I will note that the previous page, which is the average daily water production graph, combining the data from that graph to and the data that's shown on the distribution system hardness, it's very clear. I believe at the last meeting, Director Sethi was opining about how soft the water was in South Fremont, and the cause of that is very clearly seen in the March graph, where the treatment plant 2 was offline, and a considerably larger fraction of SFPUC water was being supplied. Unfortunately for Director Sethi, it looks like the treatment plant number 2 is back online, and things have gotten back to a more normal state of affairs. I believe Mr. Ash did comment briefly on the greater than anticipated use of SFPUC water, and as can be seen in the estimate versus actual in the April data. And it looks like rather than a sort of a 50-50 split of well water and SFPUC water, it looks like we're trending towards 60-40. And that's good from a hardness and PFAS standpoint. I do note that it is the most expensive source of water that we have. So I am slightly concerned that that could raise the operational costs of the district. But in overall, I'm again very pleased to see that the overall hardness of the water supply to the customers of the district is coming down, and I commend the district for its good work. Thanks.
I will add to Mr. Ken N's comments. These are some of the lowest numbers I've seen for Union City. So I'm presuming that Director Gunther is very pleased with his water over there.
He's speechless.
But I will say, while I really like Hetch Hetchy water, when it's too soft, as I've noted before, it makes it much harder to get your shampoo and certain surfactants like my Irish Spring soap off of my skin. So a little bit of hardness in the water helps out a little bit. And I actually am very pleased with the taste of our water, by the way. So good work, staff.
Mr. John Weed, quick comment on the expenses. My understanding is we have not purchased more than we pegged it right at the minimum purchase requirements that we have with our contract with San Francisco, so that we have not taken on additional costs from San Francisco to date. And that during the drought, San Francisco actually removed that minimum purchase requirement, and we actually spent far less money on San Francisco because we did not have to buy as much. We found other ways and other sources of water to meet the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Are there any other comments or questions on item 6.2? Hearing none, we will move on to item 6.3, staff presentations. And I will ask the general manager if we have any staff presentations tonight.
No, President Akbari, we have no special presentations for the board this evening.
Okay, then we can move on to item 6.4.1, the update on the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. I would just like to provide the board with a super brief update, no PowerPoint. As far as I know, we have not had any positive COVID test results for district staff since the last board meeting. So that's good news. As you're all likely aware, vaccinations are now widely available. And the CDC just revised its guidelines to permit adolescents aged 12 through 15 to be vaccinated. So I think that's good news, especially for families who are maybe concerned about the disease and would like to see their children be fully vaccinated before going back to school. So I see that as a positive outcome as well. Staff continues to work and is engaging with employees on return to workplace considerations. And that's an ongoing discussion as we define what the new normal will look like and how the transition process to that new normal will be managed. Given the current status of the COVID-19 pandemic, we also made the recent decision to have our emergency operations center meetings bi-weekly as opposed to every week because we have had less to talk about. And my understanding is 101 employees have informed the district that they are fully vaccinated. My guess is it's likely more than that. Either some employees have not gotten around to inform human resources, or for whatever reason, they may not want to do so, and we are not requiring that. The CDC also issued new recent mask guidance, but at this point, we're not going to change our policies here at ACWD. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the COVID pandemic. Otherwise, we can move to item 6.4.2.
John Weed, if I had the opportunity to listen to the monthly elected officials briefing for COVID-19 for Alameda County, and that was just this past yesterday. It appears now, from my understanding, that there is a surplus of vaccine available, and they're looking for opportunities to appears to have pop-up provisions, and will even come to an entity to give vaccinations to a group of employees if so requested. So I would ask that we at least investigate the possibility, much like we have flu shot, we do annually, and in all probability, there'll be a booster required for the vaccine, that we look into the opportunity of providing vaccinations to employees and their family members on site. Thank you.
Thank you for your suggestion.
Thank you, Director Weed. I also had a quick question. I believe Director Weed may have asked this at last month's meeting or at a committee meeting. I was curious what our plan is for reopening the lobby and for allowing customers to come to the district to ask questions or to pay bills.
So the governor announced, I believe it was last month, his intention of fully opening the state economically by June 15th. We have received no additional information about that yet. It's part of the discussions. That issue is part of the return to workplace considerations that we're having now. We haven't yet made a decision. We'd like to be in sync with state guidance as well as what other agencies are doing. So I think we're getting closer to that point, especially once we begin engaging in potential collections and shutoffs again. I don't think that we would do that. I'm talking about shutoffs and collections without opening our customer service counter first, because we need to allow customers to come in and pay their bills. So I think all of those issues kind of mesh together, and when we have a firm plan in place, definitely will inform the board.
Yeah, and just to kind of add to what Mr. Shaver said, we're not hearing from customers any concern about the front counter being closed or any interest in being able to come in, and I presume that's because we're not currently engaged in collections activities where there's less need for that. But certainly as board members, if you're hearing things in the community, that would be helpful for us to know.
I have one other point. The CDC has recently changed their guidance on the need to wear masks if you're vaccinated, and particularly for groups where everyone is vaccinated, they need to just not to have to wear masks. So I'd ask us to review our policy on and guidance to employees on vaccination, given the fact that it does have an potential employment impact if you have an individual who is not individuals who are not vaccinated within the workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weed. We're aware of the recent CDC guidelines, but we trigger most of our actions off the Alameda County Public Health Department. So we will be consistent with them as well. But certainly, we're monitoring all these developments, and we will react appropriately, maybe a little conservatively as well, to address these new considerations. The one issue to get the board starting to think about is when does the board want to get the band back together and meet in person? I would not necessarily suggest the June regular board meeting, but as we start moving into the fiscal year, and depending on what Governor Newsom does with additional state guidelines, you might want to start thinking about that particular issue.
I'm ready with my guitar.
Mr. Shaver, what would be the best forum for us to have that discussion? Would it be right now? Can the board have that discussion right now, or should we have that in a different setting?
Let me suggest that we put an item on the June regular board meeting agenda for the board to have that discussion.
I suggest that as we come back to normalcy, that a hybrid meeting may well be the way of the future, where we allow people to Zoom into our meetings. And if we have board, and I have no problem, I encourage us all to meet. If we have board members who choose not to be vaccinated, they could always Zoom in. So, thank you.
So I'll just build on Director Weed's comments. To the extent that we can continue to keep our meetings open and accessible to members of the public, and as long as it aligns with the state's regulations, I would certainly be in favor of that. And if that includes keeping the ability to convene our meetings on Zoom or some hybrid version, I would definitely be supportive of that plan.
Yeah, that was staff's assumption, actually. So let us put an item on the June regular board meeting agenda so that we can start digging into the details of what the director preferences might be. And while right now you're permitted to meet on Zoom meetings without providing access to your physical location like we did like what was required before the pandemic. It's still unclear what the requirements will be regarding that once the governor rescinds some of his executive orders. So there's still more to come, and we're monitoring that as well.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments on item 6.4.1? If not, we can move on to item 6.4.2. The district was awarded $2 million for the AMI project from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, Water Smart Water and Energy Efficiency Grant Program.
Yeah, and we thought we would share this good news with the board this evening, and I will ask Mr. Wunderlich, our manager of finance, to do so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shaver, and good evening, board members, members of the public. Back in September of last year, staff submitted an application for the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart Water and Energy Efficiency Grant in support of the district's AMI project. The district was recently notified that the project has been selected for funding at the maximum requested amount of $2 million. Over the course of the next few months, staff will be working with Bureau staff to enter into a final financial assistance agreement, which is typically a ministerial process. The success of this application brings the total grant funding secured by the district since formally establishing the grant funding team to over $20 million. And just a little bit of information about this program. It's through the Water Smart Water and Energy Efficiency Grants, formerly known as Challenge Grants. The Bureau provides 50-50 cost share funding to irrigation and water districts, tribes, states, and other entities with water or power delivery authority. Eligible projects promote water conservation and water use efficiency, increase the production of hydropower, mitigate conflict risk in areas at high risk of future water conflict, and accomplish other benefits that contribute to water supply reliability in the Western United States. Projects are selected through a competitive process, and the focus is typically on projects that can be completed within 2 or 3 years. And for the public's information, our application will be posted on the Bureau's website in the near future. And the district's AMI project was viewed as highly competitive for this program because it provides tools for enhanced water conservation and water use efficiency, such as customer leak alerts and near real-time water consumption data that customers can use to help modify their behavior. And so that's an overview of this, and we look forward to getting this going. And this funding does apply to the full deployment portion of the AMI project. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wunderlich. I mean, this is a fantastic story for us to share with the community, and really appreciate the work that staff put into to get us this grant. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
I have a question and a comment.
Yes, Director Sedgwick.
So my question is, since the Bureau of Reclamation is a federal entity and responsible for the federal deliveries of water in California, like from Lake Shasta Reservoir, how is it that we're able to qualify for a grant when we do not use any federal water?
Sure. So this is not a grant through, my understanding, it's not like a grant through the Central Valley Project or through kind of those elements of the Bureau. Rather, it's a general grant program operated by the Bureau under their broader mission to promote energy and water efficiency.
I see. Okay. By the way, I'm hearing a big echo while I'm communicating here. I don't know what's causing that. My comment is, which I've mentioned before, that other communities that have adopted AMI or implemented AMI in their communities in California have received some substantial California Energy Commission grants. And so I'm hopeful that we're pursuing that as well.
Yes, Director Sethi, I can assure you, after you made those comments at a recent meeting, they were immediately provided to the grants team, and I know they continue to monitor those Energy Commission programs to make sure we get applications in when we have the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Sethi. Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none. The only comment I would make, and I feel like I make this comment every time, but I would love for us to put out some kind of press release or some social media campaign on this, because it'd be a great story for us to communicate to the community, and I'm sure that staff are already ahead of me on that. All right, let us move on to item 6.4.3, the Niles staging area trash and trespassing issues update.
Thank you, President Akbari. This has been a challenging issue that really isn't an ACWD specific issue, as we don't really have jurisdiction in the area involved, but we do have interests. So I really appreciate the leadership of Laura Heides, who will be giving you an update.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. As the board is aware, staff has been engaging with several other agencies on the ongoing issues with trash and trespassing in and around the Niles staging area, given our interest in protecting water quality and fish passage in Alameda Creek, and we wanted to provide a brief update. On March 9th and April 28th, the district coordinated meetings that included several agencies with property and jurisdiction in the area to discuss updates on property boundaries, trash management, parking and signage, enforcement, and plans to prepare for this summer. Several agencies participated, including Alameda County Public Works, representatives from the offices of Supervisor Valle and Supervisor Halbert, City of Fremont, Caltrans, East Bay Regional Park District, San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, some of the law enforcement agencies that deal with these areas, East Bay Parks Police, Highway Patrol, Alameda County Sheriff, and one of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Wardens has participated at times. As well as representatives most recently from Alameda Creek and the Dawoodi Boris community. To date, there have been conversations on a variety of issues. The City of Fremont has been working with the neighborhood to understand local parking needs and consider options to improve parking signage and enforcement that would discourage parking to access the creek in these off-limits areas. Additionally, at the last meeting, Supervisor Valle was able to join and proposed a fence be constructed as a physical barrier to keep trespassers out as an alternative to parking changes. It's my understanding that this idea is being discussed among staff at the supervisor's offices and amongst county staff. Progress has been made on mapping the intricate web of property boundaries in the area, and discussions on improving signage are ongoing, including on Highway 84. The group most recently discussed preparation for this summer, with high use anticipated again. Although there are less COVID restrictions at various recreation facilities this year, there are still some swimming locations that are closed, some of them due to algae and other issues. So there still may be a lot of interest in accessing the creek on hot days. So in preparation, San Francisco PUC has installed signs along the roadway at their property to indicate no access and no trespassing on their portions that are often accessed by the public. East Bay Parks will be doing regular cleanups in the official park area there by the parking lot. And the group agreed that scheduling some pre-planned cleanup dates for the surrounding areas that's supposed to be no trespassing would help so that agencies could commit to contributing some resources to the effort. And both the Alameda Creek Alliance and Dawoodi Boris community have said they would be willing to recruit volunteers, which is great. So we'll be proposing some dates for those cleanups so that agencies can start planning for things like dumpsters and other resources to support and organize the cleanups. And the group will also be reconvening after Memorial Day to check in on the status and plans for the rest of the summer. And I'm personally very excited that share that Cliff Rocha from East Bay Regional Park District kindly volunteered to chair the next meeting of the group and take a turn. So in general, I've been really encouraged by the level of engagement in the recent discussions. There's still a lot of open issues, but they're being worked on. And I'm hopeful that conditions this summer will be improved from last summer. And last but not least, Mr. Stevenson and I will be going out tomorrow to see the area, as Supervisor Halbert and his staff had asked to meet and see it. They hadn't been out there previous. And today it sounds like staff from Supervisor Valle's office may be joining, along with maybe someone from City of Fremont for this short site visit as well. So that's the update of the latest, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Heides, if a ACWD director or two is interested in attending, should they just reach out to you about the specifics?
Yes, feel free. And we're going to meet in the morning. So if you would have to be up and available in the morning. So it's all kind of coming together. Changed the time a few times.
Ms. Heides, I was also extended an invitation, so I plan on attending tomorrow's meeting.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks for letting us know.
I'd like to thank you for all your work on this. This is difficult, I'll say that, but well received.
It looks like we have a comment from the member of the public, Mr. Ken.
Thank you. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to get into a Q&A on this, but Ms. Heides, does this effort include the north bank of Alameda Creek along Highway 84, approximately 3,000 feet east of the intersection with Mission Boulevard?
Does the board want me to go ahead and respond there?
Sure.
Oh, great. Yes, I don't know the exact feet there, but the north side of the creek along 84, that is part of what we've been talking about amongst the group. That side, when people are accessing from that side, they're actually coming from Highway 84, and that's all sort of Caltrans, parking signage and enforcement over there. So we are talking about that to some extent. We have not been talking about any cleanups on that side yet. We're sticking to the side that's a little more accessible to the public and a little safer to do cleanup. So the other side's a little bit bigger of a challenge. Also, hopefully not as much access over there, at least from what we've seen in terms of trash.
Okay, the reason I ask is because for quite some time there was a transient occupying a tent at that location on the north side of the creek. I did notice actually on one of my periodic inspections of that area that the USGS and I believe it was local law enforcement was actually responding to that, and that tent was subsequently removed. So I was just curious to see if that was part of this effort. I am concerned of people, that are actually living along the north bank of the creek. I mean, there are issues of water pollution, but also just overall safety. Now, given the critically dry year that we have and where we are in the calendar, it's highly unlikely that we'll have a sudden rise in water levels. But it doesn't take. If we remember a few years back when we had plentiful rain, the creek certainly rose beyond the level where that tent was located. So I'm glad to see it removed for those reasons, and I just wanted to understand whether this effort included dealing with transient unhomed people living along the creek side. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to hear that has taken place and that things are happening on that front as well.
I have a comment, please.
Director Duffy.
Through Mr. Shaver, I distributed an article from the Pleasanton Weekly earlier today. Mr. Shaver sent it out, which I was alerted to by a couple of the Zone 7 directors when we were at another special districts meeting. And they were talking about a similar collaborative effort that they went through last fall, where they're responsible for the flood control channels and creeks in the Tri-City or Tri-Valley area. And it's amazing that they were able, as a multi-government set of agencies and NGOs, they picked up something like 50 tons of trash, cleared out homeless encampments on many miles of what they're responsible for. And so I'm hopeful that tomorrow, when you're meeting with city officials and county otherwise, that there's a broader discussion to be had here about homeless encampments all the way through Niles Canyon and all the way out to the bay. As you get nearer to Coyote Hills, if you're just biking around, there's a lot of homeless encampments that are hidden away and tons of trash along our waterway, the waterway of Alameda Creek. And so it's a broader issue than just the Nile staging area, which I know we're really focused on right now. But as is seen by what Zone 7 went through, and they were the coordinating agency, just like we are here, there's a broader issue, a set of issues that we need to be talking about. And I would ask staff to please elucidate on these issues for other people that we're involved with. And then secondarily, secondarily, a lesson to be learned from what Zone 7 was involved with is to pull in the non-governmental agencies that can provide assistance to people and help out with some of the issues that we're dealing with. These organizations have their own resources and are quite willing to help if given the responsibility and given the chance to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sethi. Any other comments?
Yeah, if I could comment real quickly on that too, and that there's also another major camp opposite side of Quarry Lakes. And there's actually, I think I'm 99% certain, I've seen vehicles down in the gully there. They're kind of hard to see. The biggest concern about these is in my opinion, is going to be wildfire. These things pose hazards to the local communities next to the camps. I'm far enough away, I think. The ones in Niles Canyon pose wildfire risk. If they have a campsite, it gets out, it's going to be a very dry summer. We got to be ready. And they had a couple of them in there last year in the one by Quarry Lakes. And I'm hoping this year, before it gets too dry, that at least somebody get in there and do something. I know they've all kind of, the city, the county, Fremont, Union City, the county's all involved. I know we got some property in there. It's not an easy thing to deal with, but it's drying out. And I'd hate to see a fire start up in there again like it did last year. So that's all I've got to say tonight.
Thank you, Director Gunther.
Thank you. And obviously we'll stay engaged with this. And this is a problem that is bigger than ACWD. And I agree with all the comments that we heard, especially the comments regarding that pulling NGOs, government agencies, law enforcement, mental health specialists. This is all required to deal with these issues, and it takes time and it takes resources. And really appreciate the work that Laura has done, and we're getting traction in Niles Canyon, which is helpful. And it'll be good to work with the supervisor because they really have jurisdiction in the flood control channels and in Alameda Creek.
I'll just build on that comment, Mr. Shaver. Just a lot of appreciation for Ms. Heides. Honestly, I felt within some of the agencies, we were probably one of the more responsive ones, and that's really a testament to our staff, and that's why we were able to take the lead. We were able to come to a good resolution with the other partner agencies, and so far it seems like most of the neighborhood in that area are quite pleased with the work that we've done. So thank you, Ms. Heides, for doing that. With that, let us move on to item 7. I do recognize that we've been convened for nearly 3 hours and we haven't taken a break. So my plan, unless any directors feel otherwise, is for us to take a short break once we get into closed session. But if someone would like to take a break right now, I'm happy to do so. Otherwise, let's move on to item 7.1. And why don't we start with Director Gunther?
I can be quick. The meeting was a disaster. Yesterday, they lost the server. You couldn't sign in, after eventually figuring I was, computer illiterate, and I typed in something, I get this message, oh no, we're having problems with the sign in. Oh, great. Finally got in, attended part of the morning session. It was off and on. Then eventually they started identifying they were having problems. And I did attend, somehow I got through the entire Prop 218 attorney forum. Pretty interesting, pretty depressing. There is some movement though. I think there's a bill out there that would kind of limit the time frame you have. I think certainly Hanson and Bridget could chime in on some of these, but there seems to be a bill out there that would help cut back the opportunity for extensive Prop 218 notices after I think it was a 3-month period. You could file a 218 lawsuit and not even complain, not even put a protest in. So it was pretty depressing. And they mentioned the fire hydrant one, and they tried to deal with that. And I mean, we certainly are experts now on class action. And so I think this is maybe where there's some new movement for, find an item for a class action. Hopefully we will not see this in the near future. Today was a little more promising, still some issues. I intend on probably trying to do some stuff tomorrow with it to catch up. I attended the today first Carla's presentation, Carla Namath, pretty decent. Their Delta Conveyance still online. They're bringing environmental justice into the mix for the people in the Delta. I don't know how that, I kind of look at it as the people in the Valley maybe could use some benefit for those tunnels, but that's just a different issue. But they're still working on it, so there's still hope. Reasonably positive. The second one I did was the CARB. I'm going to get back to that. But then I also had a chance, I was able to go through the wildfire recovery from the Solano fires, and some very interesting feedback on that from the people of the three. And they had a sheriff from the OES on it. And at one point, when the fires were really starting up, he couldn't even get out of his neighborhood to get to work because I-80 was closed. All the roads were closed and there was so much traffic. Some interesting stuff there. Solano had just gotten their emergency generators because of the power shutoffs. They literally just got them, they were setting them up, and the fire hit like the next day. And those things went right into service. Very valuable, something we don't really have here, but we do have the interface out there along the hills. And I mean, we did get kind of close to that one in Pleasanton last year. I know some people, Bob, I think you were involved, I think Paul, potential evacuations, and our tanks are up there. And the pointing out of the need for the tanks and the water service. One thing I was not really aware of, and I should have been, because I've grown up in some communities where we didn't have fire service. And some of the water districts, these irrigation districts, and there's some movement towards this, is that when they first started and people started moving out there was no expectation for fire service. But now people are like, geez, we don't have fire service. It's like, yeah, surprise. They're not fire service. They don't have any fire hydrants or fire service. Never did. It was all just potable water. So it was interesting, a very interesting point. The depressing one was the CARB one. And hopefully staff is on this. I've got some past history with CARB when I was in the Coast Guard and dealing with them and mobile source emissions. And we need to stay on top of this. CARB's planning, staff probably already knows, but I was looking, they were throwing around dates of like 20, 23, 50% of our large vehicles, electric, all by 2045. We're talking the trucks, like the vacuum truck, the dump trucks. I'm not sure about the backhoes. I'm sure they're included too. And they had two districts. They had Dave Peterson from Las Dragones, I'm sure I butchered that, and Eva Placer from Rancho Water. And then they had one person, Nikki Oak, I can't pronounce her last name, from CalSTART. And she was kind of the environmentalist in the group. I'll tell you, the Eva and Dave really brought up some very interesting points, eye-opening points, and that is water districts are emergency responders. And they were describing how the shutoff, the power shutoff, the impact of those, plus the fires, and how you would send your trucks out constantly running for an entire weekend. There's no time to recharge. As the GM, Dave, pointed out, the vehicle cost might take $300,000 to buy a truck. An electric truck is $600,000 if you could buy it. I say we have to stay on top of this because when I was in the Coast Guard, CARB was presenting mobile source emission rules that were impossible to meet. There were no engine manufacturers that could do it, and you couldn't do it on a ship. And they were targeting ships. And we were telling them that. And I got out of the Coast Guard about that same point in time. I do know some of those mobile source emissions have finally gone in effect, but I've been out of the Coast Guard since '93. When they were proposing those, they wanted to do them in like 2 years. It's very important that the water industry gets together, possibly with the cities. I mean, there's a lack of understanding, I think, at the Air Board. I don't think that member from CalSmart or CalSTART really understood what they were saying. Yes, we can convert our little F-150 pickup trucks. We can convert our cars. But they're talking about converting the major trucks, the big trucks that we got. There's nothing out there in the market. There's some stuff out there. Dave, the GM, Dave Peterson said, yeah, he looked at some. And when he went down to try to find to buy it, it's like, oh no, we don't carry that right now. Still being developed. And these rules are going to go into effect pretty soon. I think 2027 was the date they were throwing around. So hopefully, I'm sure Bob, we're on it, but that's what I wanted to bring up. It's not something we talk about a lot, but our whole fleet, everything in our fleet, if we're going to follow the CARB rules, it's going to have to be changed over pretty soon. And there's no track record on this stuff. There's a huge infrastructure cost. The state's flowing in money. Maybe they can help in this situation, help us with some infrastructure, help us with charging stations, help us with batteries. I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, that was the one. I highly recommend it. It was very interesting, very enlightening. And I think the three water district people did a terrific job of explaining the difficulties and the aspect of a water district being actually being emergency responders. That's it. I'll be seeing the rest probably tomorrow or later.
Thank you, Director Gunther. How about Director Sethi? Would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. Sorry, I was on mute. I watched the same 1-hour presentation today about the developing CARB rules, and I am a little concerned about the membership of CARB, because under Governor Brown and now Newsom, it's become overloaded with environmentalists. And there's a lot to be said that's good about what CARB is doing, you know, and I can think back to when I was growing up, 60s, 70s, the air quality in California is far much improved from what I remember, especially around the Bay Area. But when you have a group of people that are only looking at things from one side and not weighing out all of the other considerations for industry, it feels a little heavy-handed, like they're getting a sledgehammer and hitting everybody over the head and trying to expedite things as quickly as possible. And of even greater concern is all of these environmental groups, the Sierra Club and everyone else that trails behind them, that have absolutely no understanding of the industry issues. They're chanting what they want to see without, I mean, especially the Sierra Club. I really have to take them to task, because the people that speak up for them at CARB have absolutely no understanding of what goes on in the real world life of government agencies and industry. So yeah, I'm really concerned here. We need to stay on top of this. We would have to do an entire fleet replacement starting as soon as 2023. And I think we need to factor this into our CIP projects, expenditures. And I think there should be other incentives in place where we make a rational business decision on upgrading to clean energy vehicles on the medium and heavy duty vehicles that they were talking about. So I'll leave it at that. Yesterday, I was able to get into the 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock finance and local government presentation, which included the discussion about putting the service charge on the property tax roll. I would encourage our legal counsel to watch that video. All three presentations were excellent. And the one in reference to the service charge, that presentation was given by Mr. Hagan, an attorney who specializes in Prop 218 and these other issues. He has assisted 3 different county water districts in moving their service charge onto the property tax roll. So he focused his presentation on the legal foundation for doing so, and the legal mechanics of transitioning to doing that. And then he discussed, highlighted a little bit of why it was beneficial for his clients. But he limited those remarks to essentially saying it made it much easier, it was more efficient for them. But I was supposed to give the supplementary presentation on the the benefits of moving the service charge to the property tax roll, but we had a little bit of a mix-up with Aqua staff last month, and so my presentation was not recorded and included. But I am planning to give that presentation on June 2nd at another Aqua session. So, and my presentation was focused on the benefits to the millions of renters across California, disadvantaged communities, small businesses, other enterprises. So I will share that presentation that I give next month with the rest of the board and staff. The attorney gave a very compelling case for moving the service charge onto the property tax roll. And it's the first time we've had a presentation where he went through the legal foundations for doing this, not only within Prop 218 and Prop 26, but he went through a real healthy discussion of what's in the Public Health and Safety Code, pretty much with what Mr. Miyake and his colleague Claire Collins at Hanson Bridget have pointed out, that the Public Health and Safety Code does cover county water districts. He also explained that the county water laws in California for county water districts permits water districts like our own to be in the sewage business. So because we're authorized to go into that service area, we are covered by the sanitation and sewage ordinances or laws of the Public Health and Safety Code. So that was interesting to learn all that. And none of these county water districts that he represents have been sued or anything like that. And, you know, I think it's important to note that in each case, these water districts that have made this transition, including ones that he does not represent, that we're knowledgeable about, that have also not been sued, they all went through extensive public outreach. They were very transparent. They went through multiple community meetings over the course of 6 months to a year. So I think all in all, that was really good to hear this being presented for the first time, and really clarifying for a lot of people that have questions, you know, whether you can legitimately do this or not. I'm planning on catching up on a couple of more of these tomorrow, other sessions, and I think I will leave it at that here.
Thank you, Director Sethi. Director Lead, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, please. Thank you. First of all, I'll follow up on Director Sethi's note. If it's possible to get a copy of the video of Mr. Harden's comments, and to ask our own attorney to comment on the concept based on this additional information and analysis, and any recommendations he might have to how to clarify any issues he feels are not clarified, if necessary, by any additional legislation. Next, when we talk about clean vehicles, I believe hydrogen is one of the other options. And as we're developing clean vehicle technology, it may well go beyond just electrical vehicles. So we need to keep that in mind. And finally, about several years ago, we had a relatively brief presentation by staff on the lessons learned and the experiences of the drought and what the financial implications were. It was noted we were short about $60 million in revenue, and how we offset that with a surcharge, change in accounting principles, et cetera. So to find that document and then in preparation for going into this oncoming drought, which I believe will be with us for several years, I think may well be informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weed.
Director Weed, I went back to relook at the presentation today. All of the presentations you can just log in and review right now. In the last Aqua sessions, we were not able to do that. You had to watch it when it occurred, but you couldn't go right back and see it, but now you can.
Right. I believe that's good until May 28th. And then it goes into the archives. So that's why I was hoping we can capture a copy of it.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. There was I did have a problem, even though I was able to watch that session yesterday. The presenters had documents that they provided. One was from the attorney from the state auditors on, it was a kind of a guidebook on how public utility or government entity, what the process was for putting things on the property tax roll. And he highly recommended that booklet, and there were other presentation materials, but I couldn't download any of them. So I intend to call Aqua tomorrow and ask about that.
Thank you for all the comments. Director Huang, did you have any board comments?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Great. And nothing from my end either. So we'll conclude item 7 and move on to item 8, closed session. Item 8.1, pursuant to California Government Code, section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators. Agency designated negotiators are Robert Shaver, Jennifer Solito, Jonathan Wunderlich, and Stacy Q. And the employee organizations are Operating Engineers Local 3 and the ACWD Operators Association. Item 8.2, pursuant to California Government Code, section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators. Agency designated negotiators are Robert Shaver and Jennifer Solito, and the unrepresented employees are the management confidential professional employees. Item 8.3, pursuant to California Government Code, section 54956.9D2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one potential case. With that, we will convene into closed session, and I'll ask the district secretary to move us into our breakout room, please.
Good night, Laura.
Good night, Kurt. I'm gonna bail too. Good night, Gina.
Great. It is 11:25 p.m. and the board has returned from closed session into open session. We've concluded items 8.1, 8.2, 8.3. Item 8.1, pursuant to California Government Code, section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators. The agency designated negotiators, Robert Shaver, Jennifer Solito, Jonathan Wunderlich, and Stacy Q. And the employee organizations are the Operating Engineers Local 3 and ACWD Operators Association. And direction was provided to the agency designated negotiators. Item 8.2, pursuant to California Government Code, section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators. Agency designated negotiators are Robert Shaver and Jennifer Solito, and the unrepresented employees are the management confidential professional employees. And again, direction was provided to the agency designated negotiators. Item 8.3, pursuant to California Government Code, Section 54956.9D2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one potential case. No action was taken on this item. And with that, at 11:27 p.m., we will adjourn tonight's board meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. Have a good night.
Hi to
Good night.
Belinda, Jim. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Everybody.
Not quite midnight.
We made it.
Made it this time.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.